Do, do, do. I hope you enjoyed it. This is The Season of the Witch by Lana Del Rey. It's actually on the soundtrack for Youngblood, which is the book that I will be reading to you all tonight. So tonight, my name is Medallio Green, and I will be reading the next 5 pages of Youngblood, the Hybrid Series, Book 1. And I will be the characters as they come in. So if my voice changes, it's because I am in character. If you would like to follow along, please feel free to buy the book anywhere books are sold, paperback or digital. I am going to be starting on page 10. I may have already read it, but I want to read it again because it's where everything left off. We're actually in the middle of Evita performing her magic. So that's why I put on The Season of the Witch. So I'm going to start on page 10 if you'd like to follow along, if you have a copy of your own. And welcome to the Fireside Reading, episode 3. Okay. Will you show us both? My voice sounded small, unsure if that was what I wanted. At her nod, Chrysanthia touched her fingertips to me and Dorian's foreheads. Evita chuckled while we watched. What did it feel like, Anna? I croaked out a response against her grip, like something you'll never accomplish. My face pounded against the strain. I hoped she would never siphon a spell that could capture the high-definition picture of Chrysanthia's visions. But Evita's words had a double meaning because Chrysanthia showed me and Dorian that we weren't going to win in Technicolor. Rage bubbled to the surface and came out with a roar. Evita shushed me and then grinned. This is my favorite part. Chrysanthia's voice stole my attention. I witnessed your mom destroy this home with her magic. Evita will use the order and the resources only to benefit herself. Evita hissed with a cluck of her tongue, but her eyes still shined with delight. Those resources will only go so far. She will take your son to one day absorb his magic. Dorian placed me on the seat before jumping to his feet. Outrage tinged his alabaster skin with beads of red. He closed in on Chrysanthia. If he took another step, then the toe of his shoe would bump into hers. No! Tell us how to change it. Tell us how to change his fate. Thick wisps of Ireland weaved through his words. Chrysanthia pushed on. There isn't any way. She knows he's the key to destroying her, but her death by his hand will be his downfall. Evita practically shrieked with glee in my ear at the sound of my son's fate. It was painful to watch Dorian's body brace, as if he was about to lunge at Chrysanthia. But he backed up and paced a few feet away from us. I watched my past self rub her belly as hot, angry tears cascaded down her cheeks. No, I won't accept that this is the world that we live in, where my unborn child is already damned. I won't accept this, Chris. Chrysanthia grimaced, obviously, to give us this information. I'm sorry, I can't read. Chrysanthia grimaced, obviously hating to give us this information. Evita will teach him about magic, only to study him to see when she can take his powers from him once he's fully developed. Anna, he must go with her to learn about his powers and grow into the man that we'll need in the future. She's the only one who can teach him. Lightning flashed and lit up the disheveled kitchen for a millisecond. The spell's heavy constraints lifted, leaving behind its tart-smelling residue. I blinked away the blurriness, feathering the edges of my sight while adjusting my jaw that was rapidly healing. Evita must have slipped away while the spell put me back in the middle of the destruction she created. Fear slithered like tendrils of smoke, tingling my skin at the sight of Liam's turtle magnet from the fridge, placed at my feet as if it were taunting me. I bent down and plucked it up, stuffing it in the back pocket of my jeans, then turned the knob for the back door as my home's foundation shuddered and groaned. The magical wards put up by a witch in and outside of our house lit up in a sickly orange hue until they burned out. Evita broke through just like she promised. Wrenching the door open with hybrid strength, the already busted hinges popped off with a sharp creak. I ran at hybrid speed into the December warmth. Dorian! Screaming for him, while maneuvering around shards of glass covering the grass. But Dorian kept playing with Liam by holding Liam upside down by the legs, making him shriek with joy. They were still under Evita's spell, unknowing that the house was practically caved in just a few feet away. Thunder clapped overhead so fierce that it felt like it shook the air around us. I threw my arms around Dorian's waist from behind, jolting him enough for his steps to slightly falter. "She's here!" Dorian clung to me while I gulped down air, trying to catch my breath. One look at me and Dorian's smiling face contorted into worry. "She's here! Evita's here!" Shouting seemed futile against constant thunderclaps. Dorian quickly turned Liam right side up. I tried to calm my voice for Liam's sake, but my words still came out frantically. "She destroyed the house!" I pointed to the property barely standing on its foundation while slightly bouncing up and down the balls of my feet, unable to contain my anxious energy. "Can't you see?" My plea was enough to break the spell. Liam cried out while his eyes bounced to the destroyed house and yard, and then to me and Dorian. Frenetic energy hung in the air, making my eyes widen as spice and brimstone filled my nose. A flash of lightning cast an eerie glow over Dorian's features that changed to something akin to horror as he stared at the house. He passed Liam to me so quickly that Liam yelped, and I worried that he pulled a muscle. I looked into Liam's dilated, terrified eyes and felt his consciousness bend to my mind. A lump caught in my throat as I used mind control on my son for the first time. "You are not in danger. You are calm in your mother's arms." A stray tear spilled down his cheek. My thumb wiped it away gently, savoring the softness of his skin. Dorian stared in the direction of the front lawn with his hands clenched into fists at his sides while sniffing the air. His deeply blue eyes were sunken in and hollow like an empty grave at a cemetery. Blue veins spread and shifted underneath his skin like cobwebs. I shielded Liam's face from seeing his father like this by pressing his head gently into my shoulder. Dorian's breathtaking oval face was set into such hard, tense lines that I wondered if his teeth hurt from grinding down. He towered over us by 6 feet as our shield against Evita as she strolled in our direction from the front lawn. I touched his shoulder and he glanced around, piercing me with his gaze. He spoke through clenched teeth. "Go, Anna. I'll hold her off. Get to the barn." My body wouldn't allow me to move. I knew that I needed to protect our son, but what about his father? He was my imprint, the truest and purest love created by nature and magic. He was my savior. Why couldn't I be his? A cold sweat pooled at the base of my spine as we watched sparks trickle from Evita's fingertips that mingled with a lightning strike. Thunder boomed, and the reverberation heightened the dread clutching and squeezing my gut that made me choke out my words. "We can't leave you." Tears stung my eyes, and I blinked them back just as a sprinkling of rain coated the sleeve of my t-shirt. Liam buried his face further into my shoulder until he quickly looked up to point at a series of small tornadoes sweeping over the yard, absorbing the grass, flowers, and outdoor trinkets. "Mommy, Da, look!" Evita's magic evidently had no length when she wanted to take our son away. Dorian yelled, "Go, Anna!" When I stayed rooted to the spot, he gripped my shoulders and looked deeply into my eyes, using the same mind control I just used on our son. "Take our son to safety as fast as you can. I'll find you." Mind control gave me no choice but to comply, but I could still feel seething anger underneath it. I tightened my grip on Liam as I stepped into Dorian's space. Pushing up on my tiptoes, he bent down to meet my lips in a deep kiss that felt like a goodbye. He quickly kissed the top of Liam's head. As tears and rain stained my face, I walked away from my love and ran through the destroyed lawn. Debris, broken glass, and giant pieces of plaster now slick from the pouring rain. Glancing back, even through the storm, I clearly saw Dorian's blue eyes swirl to black, while blue veins burst under his eyes and over his forehead like spider webs. He bared his sharp teeth slightly as he mouthed, "I love you." He turned to face Evita as she closed the distance, pulling a guttural sob from what felt like my soul. No choice but to keep going for the sake of my son. Burred against my chest, we stopped at an indent in the soil. It was obvious if you knew where to look. I knelt in the middle of the space, dug through the heavy wet dirt until my fingers wrapped around a steel handle, and pulled open a metal cellar door. With Liam secured at my hip, I stepped down onto the first few steps while wrenching the heavy door closed. Darkness caressed the space with the scent of cold earth. Liam buried his face in my shoulder, murmuring, "Dark, Mommy." I used my free hand to flip a switch above us. Edison bulbs illuminated the dim entryway. Liam covered his face with his little hands. "White, Mommy." I'm going to stop there just for a second. Just want to say hello to anybody who's newly joined. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. For those of you who are new to the live, my name is Medallio Green, and I am the author of Youngblood, the Hybrid series. This is actually book 1 in the series. Book 2 will be coming out in the next couple of months. It's called Shadow Creatures. If you would like to follow along while I read, please purchase your copy of the book through anywhere you can buy books. It's on digital and paperback. It'll actually be free the week of Cyber Monday, so you can get a copy then digitally if you'd like to. This is page 14. I'll be stopping on page 16 because it's actually a really good scene. I'll be stopping there, and that'll be the last pages that I'll read for chapter 1. And then in 2 weeks, since next week is a holiday, I'll move on to chapter 2, and I'll read the first 5 pages there. So I'm going to continue where I left off. I replied, "It's okay, baby. Just open your eyes. They'll adjust." He opened his eyes as I kissed his forehead, breathing in his lavender scent for comfort. The storm shelter had the strongest wardings in existence burned into the door and brick walls. Metal, heavy-duty shelves were placed against the wall in the living room that stored our canned foods and snacks for Liam. I stared at the tiny kitchenette where blood bags were stashed in the fridge. A tiny ball of dread sat in my stomach as we waited for Evita to come. By way of Chrysanthea's vision, we knew that Evita would always find us. I walked us away from the door and sat on the low love seat with Liam's toys in a box in front of me. He leaned down, pointing to the floor while I pet his hair. Abruptly, he looked at me and then at the box of toys. He wiggled in my arms, and I gave him a watery smile at his innocence. My throat closed with the effort it took to keep my tears from falling. I let him down, and he immediately started taking out toys. While he was occupied, I pressed my ear to the door. I frowned at the metal when all I heard was the pitter-patter of rain on the steel handle. Suddenly, the walls violently shook. Instinctively, I quickly ran to Liam to stand in front of him. The wardings glowed bright orange and then dulled. He wrapped his little arms around my calves. Both our hearts pounded loud enough that he could probably hear it. He stared wide-eyed at me and whispered, "Mommy, I'm scared." I turned and knelt to quickly pick him up and ran at hybrid speed into the bedroom, holding him tight, careful not to hurt him as he rested his cheek on my chest. Tears crept up on me like long, thin fingers in the dark and squeezed my throat until I choked on them. A few plump drops landed on Liam, and he looked up at me with his own tear-stricken eyes. I wiped his face gently with my fingers, and he did the same for me. Then I put my index finger to his lips to keep him quiet while biting down on my bottom lip. Trembles battering my body gave away my fear. Loud rattling and simultaneous crashes made Liam yelp. He gasped when pressing his face into my chest. I petted the top of his head while peeking my ears at the sounds outside the door. I dug the turtle magnet out of my pocket and held it out for Liam. "Sweetheart," when Liam lifted his head, I continued, "Take this, and it will give you comfort. You'll think of me and your father." Agonizing sorrow dripped onto my skin and seeped inside as it dawned on me that Dorian might not make it here in time to say goodbye. Liam nodded without saying anything. I slipped the magnet into his pocket and then kissed his cheek gently. The trapdoor rattled violently, then ripped off the hinges. The sound was deafening against the ringing in my ears. Next, the bedroom door wrenched outward so forcefully that 2 large holes were left in its wake on both sides of the wall. Plaster scattered at my feet as I jumped back. Liam screamed, and I pressed my hand to the back of his head to keep him from looking at Evita when she stood in the doorway with unapologetic deep brown eyes, the same color and shape as mine when I was human. Hurriedly, I brought Liam into the bathroom where a witch burned an active ward into the wooden door. The deadbolt would only delay Evita a few seconds at best. I sat Liam on the cool tile floor against the bathtub. He reached for me when I knelt in front of him. I whispered, "It's going to be all right." His wide, terrified eyes were unfocused when I tapped into his mind, making him remember his first time going to a carnival with Dorian. Dorian called it manly bonding with a wide grin. Using this memory, I activated the failsafe. The only weapon that we had more powerful than Evita was the untapped power that resided in Liam. I couldn't keep the pain out of my voice, and he noticed while he reached for me. "Liam, you are the strongest witch in the world. You have insurmountable power that scary lady out there doesn't. I know that power is inside of you and you haven't tapped into it yet. Mommy needs you to always use it, especially against Avita. Never hide your power. And know that Mommy and Daddy will always love you because we love you for who you are. You mean more to us than all the power in the world. One day, you'll remember this when you need it most. A tear spilled from the corner of my eye while I covered up my words with a memory of that carnival. All the games he played, all the laughs he and Dorian shared. The connection held on until Avita kicked through the door with more strength than any human witch should possess. You're making this very easy for me. At Avita's cocky tone, I tucked in and launched my body at her at hybrid speed, ramming my shoulder into her chest. She let out an oomph as her body pinned to the wall. My hands gripped her throat while watching Liam cry at the sight. Tremors shook his little body as he called out, "Mommy!" repeatedly. That fear fueled my bloodlust. Then a heavy force slammed into my chest, flinging me backward through the linen cabinet next to the bathtub. Wood splintered and groaned against my weight. A searing pain rang out in my chest, making me gasp for breath. Avita got to her feet while tendrils of lightning sparked from her fingertips. Ready to charge her again, I quickly climbed to my feet, but her reflexes were swifter than I expected as she whispered, "Consto." Every ounce of hybrid strength and instinct bled from my body under her magical restraints that kept me still. "Mommy! No!" Liam's fingers clawed at my pants to climb up. His wail stabbed me in the chest like a serrated knife. "Mommy!" Calmly, I spoke to Liam, though rage loomed just below the surface. "Liam, look at me. Look at Mommy's face." One eye stayed on Avita as she watched our exchange with a toothy grin. Once Liam focused on me, I continued, "Mommy's fine. I'm okay. Doesn't Mommy look okay?" He slowly nodded while tears wet his face. I'll be sure to bleed every ounce of empathy from his little body. Liam's head jerked over to stare at Avita. Okay, that's it. I'm going to leave you all in suspense. If you want to know what happens, then please feel free to get your copy of Youngblood. You can get it for free the first week of December during Cyber Monday through, I think, until Friday of that week. The book is called Youngblood, the Hybrid Series. It's book 1 by Medallio Green. If you can't get it during Cyber Monday, then get yourself a copy through anywhere books are sold, paperback or digital. I've been told that the cover is beautiful. This is what it looks like. It's really pretty. The second book will be a flower too on the cover, so it'll be just as beautiful. But that's it for the Fireside Reading episode 3. I hope you all enjoyed me reading in different accents and characters. It's not as easy as I thought it would be. But if you missed it and you want to share it with anybody that you know, if they might like a good, hybrid vampire book, I will be putting these videos up on YouTube. I hope that I can separate them into episodes. I'll be putting the link for the YouTube in my bio, so it'll be in my link tree. But that's it. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying and listening to my voice. I hope it was entertaining. I hope you enjoyed my fire. It's as good as I'm gonna get right now. But I'll also have a Patreon that'll be going live next week. So if you want bonus content, if you would like to be a part of the tiers to have bonus content in terms of advanced reader copies, bonus scenes, short stories, actual commissioned art that I actually bought from artists that they did for me for my book, you'll get the first chance to see that. There's so much more. There's giveaways. There's a ton of things that you'll be a part of when you sign up with my Patreon. But that link will also be in my bio as well. But thank you so much. I hope you all have a really great night. Bye, everybody.